for the graduating students to select a faculty speaker, but this time 2 teachers, Mr. Jason Bruff and Mr. Jonathan Cox, have been bestowed this honour. This was Jason's 4th year at OFS, teaching physics and theory of knowledge. Previously, he taught in the UK, Canada, and France. Jason epitomises the best of our teaching profession. He is extremely knowledgeable. He is highly experienced in both teaching and learning. And he is a teacher who has earned the respect of his students. After Jason, Mr. Jonathan Cox will address the students. Jonathan taught in the UK and Dubai, and he worked in business throughout Western Europe before joining OFS in 2010. He taught English literature, and in August he was appointed academic advisor. In both roles he has made his mark with our graduating students, who quickly learned that he cared for them and he cared for their future, whether in his teaching or his administrative duties. There's testimony to that student respect that teachers providing the remarks to the graduating class, Mr. Jason Bruff and Mr. Jonathan Cox.
Honoured guests, directors, members of staff, class of 2030. I'm extremely honoured to have been nominated by the student body to give this address today. In fact, I'm almost certain this is the first time in recorded history that a physics teacher has ever been a winner in any kind of popular vote. Those of you who were at the senior formal will know that not all the advice I've given you over the years has been overly useful. So today, I've decided instead of advice, I'll share 3 observations with you that I've made throughout my life. The first occurred to me when watching a clip of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was addressing a body of students, much like you, and he noted that with 24 hours in a day, if you slept for 6 hours, that left 18 hours to work hard and fulfill your dreams. However, he said for those people who needed more than 6 hours sleep, you should sleep faster. It occurred to me, though, that over the years that I've known you, sleeping wasn't really the problem. Staying awake, however, could be. So for every one of you that's ever felt your eyes begin to close when your teacher's been talking to you in a lesson, my first observation is this: in the next chapter of your life, stay awake harder. My second observation comes from a reflection of my own life. Many of you may be surprised to know that I was not always the worldly-wide, sophisticated individual that you see before you today. In fact, I was born and brought up in a very small village in rural Warwickshire in England. And if I tell you that this area was in fact the inspiration for J.R. Tolkien's The Shire, you should have some visual imagery of whereabouts I was brought up. Not that the people there were the inspiration for the Hobbits, though. That was the next village over. By coincidence, though, I too have ended up having a number of adventures since leaving the Shire. It wasn't until the age of 32 that I got my first passport. Before this time, I'd always lived within about 10 kilometres of the village in which I'd been born. For a large part of my formative years, I drifted without much of a sense of purpose, other than feeling I wasn't quite ready just to settle for what life seemed to have in store for me. Even after I qualified as a teacher, life essentially carried on in much the same way. By this point, I'd all but resigned myself to feeling that life had very little left in the way of surprises in store for me. It was around this time that I was uncharacteristically bemoaning my sense of dissatisfaction to a friend when I was given one of the most simple and poignant pieces of advice I've ever been given. Jason, he said, Jason, if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. The realization that I needed to effect a change in my life, instead of just waiting for a change to happen, was a major influence on my decision to apply for my first overseas teaching job in Paris. It was there that I met my wife, and since that time, and with her constant encouragement, I have found myself on adventures where I was charged at by an Indian rhino, scuba diving with sharks, confronted by a wild bear in the Canadian wilderness, and even stretched off a mountain in the Alps while learning to ski. I will admit to you that not all of these experiences are things I volunteer to repeat. What I have learned though is this: the planet we live on is a remarkable place. It's the only planet still that we know of that supports a life form with the ability to appreciate the majesty, the complexity, and the simplicity of the physical universe. Even here on planet Earth, the scope for exploration and adventure is still only bounded by the limits of your own imagination. My second observation is this: always remember, your next great adventure never needs to be your last great adventure. And finally, before you go on to the next step of your academic journey, or take your first steps to becoming the next captains of industry, doctors, diplomats, entrepreneurs, and of course physics teachers, I would like to bear this in mind. I do appreciate that the world can sometimes come across as an unforgiving place. News stories of wars, bankrupt economies, corrupt regimes, and even reality television is enough to depress even me. The simple fact is, though, that none of these things are the world. These things are society. And societies can change and they can evolve. Each successive generation has their chance to make a difference and create a greater legacy than the generation that preceded it. So my last observation is simply this: your time to effect a change, class of 2013, your time is now. Thank you very much for affording me the honor of speaking at your graduation. I do wish you all the most wonderful future. Thank you very much. I'd now like to hand over to Mr. Jonathan Cox. Thank you again.